What's up, everybody? Welcome to Court Vision. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Western Conference play-in, which, as of time of recording, starts in just over a day. And I'm going to be talking about the strengths and weaknesses of all of these teams. If you saw my East play-in video that came out either yesterday or 2 days ago, depending on when this releases, it's the same kind of thing. And then I'm going to talk about the matchups that each team has, and then my predictions for who's going to make it out of the play-in. Starting off with the 10-seeded Dallas Mavericks, this is a team that's really interesting because I hadn't paid too much attention to them post Luka trade. Obviously, with the Kyrie injury and AD being out for a while, there wasn't really a ton to watch. But over the past couple weeks, they've definitely figured some stuff out. This team definitely has an identity now, which is more than I could say before. Um, but no Kyrie is definitely going to be rough for this team going forward. But in terms of the strengths of the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, the first thing you see when you watch their games is how big this team is. I mean, when they're running the double big lineup, and if PJ Washington's out there, they've got three players, 6'10" and above. The smallest players on their team that really get minutes are like Klay Thompson, Max Christie, who are both 6'5". So really, really a big team. I really like their implementation of the double big. I think AD next to Lively and Gafford works really well. Their implementation of the, one big rolls, one in the dunker is the best because Lively and Gafford are such crazy vertical threats. I think AD as an isolation scorer really brings an extra kind of element to the double big that you don't see with a lot of other teams. Another thing that's positive for me for Dallas is kind of how egalitarian their offense has looked. And a lot of people have criticisms of egalitarian offenses, like look at what a lot of people have said about Memphis earlier in this season. But what I mean by egalitarian offense is just everyone on the team's looking for each other. Everyone's willing to make extra passes. There are 6 or 7 different guys that kind of routinely get some reps, initiating the offense as a ball handler, whether that be, initiating a DHO as a ball handler on a pick and roll or, just in the action generally. Najee Marshall has been really a positive surprise for me. Him initiating the offense has been surprising and really impressive. He's able to make, some difficult reads. He's able to find, some skips or cross-court passes that the team really, can use to get the defense in rotation. That's another thing for Dallas in general is they really love the cross-court pass or the skip pass to create rotations from the defense and get their offense moving. Another strength is obviously their rim protection that comes from just the size and the verticality of their team. AD, obviously, famously very good rim protector. They've got Daniel Gafford, very good shot blocker. They've got Derek Lively, who's a good defender both in space and at the rim. And then PJ Washington as a secondary rim protector does a pretty good job as well. And their scheme kind of focuses on that rim protection. They bring a lot of bodies early into the paint to prevent those touches, even sometimes before the offense has brought the ball within the three-point line. So they're really selling out to defend the rim and defend the paint, and they do a pretty good job at it. Their size, obviously, again, brings in the lob threat. If they can bring the big away from the basket on offense and then either in a pick and roll coverage or off a drive or something like that, they have the crazy lob threat. Any of those 4 guys that I talked about before as rim protectors can catch a lob. The rotation of this team is also actually pretty solid. There's 8 or 9 guys that I'm actually fairly confident in being able to play, some decent minutes in a postseason setting, whether that be just in the play-in or if they were to make the playoffs out of there. Now, of course, there are definitely some weaknesses for this team. They really get beat up a lot on the drive and kick game. That's because their defensive scheme is so focused on the help and bringing bodies into the paint that they really, really give up a ton on the drive and kick because, they collapse. They have 3 or 4 bodies in the paint. There's going to be at least a couple open shooters on the outside. They also have their bigs defend in space, which is an intentional thing, but it's not great. They have AD helping off of the corner, helping off of the big man, so he can play as a roamer, but that means they have Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford when they have the double big out there is defending in space, kind of on an island a lot. You saw in the game they played against the Lakers, Derek Lively or Gafford was matched up like in isolation on Luka a lot, and he was just tearing them up. Their on-ball creation is pretty weak. With no Kyrie, obviously they're relying on Najee Marshall. PJ Washington's doing a lot. Dinwiddie is doing a lot. So they're having to do most of the ball handling and the creation on ball. And I mean, they're solid like secondary ball handlers in their own rights, but none of them really are elite. And that's definitely going to hurt them, going forward against better defenses. Then just two questions I have for this team is AD's going to get dared to shoot threes in the double big lineup. Teams are going to leave him open and try to help off. Can he take advantage? He's only shooting 28.2% on the season, which isn't great. That's going to be something that we see if he's able to convert or not going forward. And then again, with the ball handling, will their ball handlers be able to hold up against better defenses with more pressure? I can definitely imagine in my mind teams with better defenders really, really picking on them, forcing turnovers, stagnating their offense just off the ball pressure. All right, moving on to the 9-seeded Sacramento Kings. This is a team that I'm not super positive on. And going over their strengths, there's just a few things that really stick out to me. Their pick and roll actually is surprisingly good. Sabonis is a great screener. And then Zach LaVine as a ball handler in the pick and roll is actually pretty capable of making reads, finding guys out of the pick and roll specifically. And then, of course, when Malik Monk was there, he was also pretty good in the pick and roll, but he's injured now. And so Zach LaVine is the lead ball handler, which, has its own laundry list of, strengths and weaknesses. Sabonis is also another strength for this team. He's a great offensive hub out of the high post. He's able to make reads, find guys. He's a great rebounder as well. He just provides a lot of utility for this team in terms of playmaking and in terms of rebounding, which are two things that the team really lacks. So his value is huge. And then they have some buckets on the team. They have some real shot makers. LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are both just buckets, to say the least. When you need someone to make a tough shot, late in the game, those two guys are pretty good at that. There's definitely some weaknesses to talk about with this team. The on-ball defense is something that's definitely in question. Keon Ellis is a great defender, and I'm glad he's actually starting. But beyond him, there's not many perimeter guys who can play super heavy minutes. Devin Carter's a great defender, but his offense is pretty lacking, so he doesn't get minutes like that. Rim protection is another weakness for them. Sabonis and Valanciunas, they're two bigs. Neither of them are good defensively, especially at the rim. They really tend to overplay drives and give up, cuts, lobs, things like that. And they also are pretty bad defending the pick and roll and the drop. And they're really, really reluctant to play out towards the perimeter. And so they'll give up open threes sometimes, helping off of guys that they shouldn't be helping off of. Playmaking is another weakness for this team. Like I said before, with Malik Monk out due to injury, he will miss the play-in. LaVine has been in charge of the offense, and he's good in the pick and roll, like I said, but he's really uninspiring otherwise. Post-trade deadline, so on the Kings, he's got a usage of 23.7, but in the couple games he's played since Malik Monk went down, it's up to 29.5. So he's got like a top 10% in the league usage since Malik Monk went down, and he's not a very strong playmaker. That's definitely something to look for this team. Their spacing is really bad. People who have been following the Kings know this. There's pretty much two guys on the team who are quality three-point shooters. That's Zach LaVine and Keon Ellis again. And then literally everyone else on the team that actually plays is below league average, except for Jake LaRavia. Shout out to him. But he doesn't get heavy minutes. And then their offense also really relies on Sabonis as a screener. Him initiating the offense through dribble handoffs or in the pick and roll with him as a screener is where they generate a lot of their best offense, and they can really stagnate when Levine has to initiate an isolation or something like that. And that's just kind of a consequence of their lack of ball handling. Then just three questions for this team. Keon Ellis, can you make 5 threes a game? Because your team is going to need them if they're going to have a chance of winning any of these play-in games, much less a playoff game. Second thing is Zach LaVine going to, improve or get anything going as a playmaker? He's had some decent games. He had an 11 assist game, mostly off the pick and roll, but he did have an 11 assist game recently. But he hasn't proved to me that he can do it consistently across a whole game or between games or, outside of the pick and roll at all. DeMar's efficiency is a question for me. On the season, he's shooting 50.2 effective field goal percentage, which is well below league average. And he has a really high usage rate, 27.3%, sorry. So when you're getting this many touches, and it's almost all in isolation, he has a very low assisted percentage. So when you're getting this many isolation touches and you're well below league average in terms of efficiency, it's really hurting the offense. So if he can pick up his efficiency, that will be a boost to Sacramento going forward. Moving on from the Kings to a team that I think is way better, the 8-seed Memphis Grizzlies. This is a much better team, even with the turmoil that they've been having, the firing of Taylor Jenkins and all that. The team looks to be somewhat back on track. So some strengths for them is the number one thing that's really important is since Taylor Jenkins was fired, Ja looks much, much better. The team's running more pick and rolls, which is enabling him to get to his game more often. And he also just looks much more confident as a three-point shooter. He's shooting 37.8% on 7.4 attempts a game in the last 10, which is like really, really elite numbers. He's averaging 30 points, 7 assists on almost 60% effective field goal percentage, which is spectacular. And he's going to need to keep doing that if Memphis wants to succeed going forward, first in the play-in and then if they were to make the playoffs. Their depth and their shot creation without Ja is really good. They're still able to get into their offense, the Memphis offense that we've seen all season. They swing the ball, they create opportunities off the movement, they attack closeouts. Part of that is just the scheme and the talent, but also part of that is Scottie Pippen Jr. and Desmond Bane looking really good as secondary ball handlers. In the last 10 games, in 25.7 minutes, Scottie Pippen Jr. is averaging 5 assists a game with 50 to 22 assists to turnovers. So a pretty good assist to turnover ratio, and 5 assists a game off the bench is pretty solid production for him. And then Desmond Bane, who's not really historically known for being a playmaker, is averaging 4.8 assists a game with 48 assists to 19 turnovers in his past 10. So that's really solid. And then Desmond Bane's also averaging 21 points a game, which has been a real boost for the Memphis recently. I don't know. Their secondary creation is just efficient and it's very capable. And then another thing to consider about the depth is their third guy through their seventh guy. If Ja's the number one, Jaren's the number two, their third through seventh are really, really strong. You've got Desmond Bane, Santi Aldama, Zach Edey, Scottie Pippen Jr., Luke Kennard, and then beyond those guys, you've got Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams Jr., who are, capable players. And then their double big is another strength. Recently, since Taylor Jenkins was fired, Zach Edey's been getting way more minutes and looking like way more empowered, which is partially because they're running more pick and rolls, and Edey's a great pick and roll partner for Ja and Scottie. Not to mention, he's just a beast on the glass. I mean, he's playing 26 minutes a game, and he's averaging 11 and a half rebounds in his last 10 games. So just really, really beasting on the glass. And then Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., him as the other part of the double big is super great because when he's at the 4, his crazy size and strength gives him all kinds of mismatch opportunities. And then when you're just running one big with just him out there, his spacing gives him a 5 outlook. So that adds some extra lineup versatility, which is definitely great for this team moving forward. In terms of weaknesses, the two things that really stick out to me is on-ball defense. The team kind of already didn't have great on-ball personnel beforehand, but especially now that Jalen Wells is out with injury for the rest of the season, they really, really are going to struggle on ball defensively at the point of attack. Santi Aldama is pretty good, but he's not really quick enough to keep up with like some of the better guards. And then in terms of guard defenders, Scottie Pippen's good, but he's small. Desmond Bain is historically a pretty good defender, but hasn't been very good this season. So they're definitely going to struggle in that department. And then turnovers are another big thing to consider with this team. They are 27th in the league with 15.7 turnovers a game. To put that into perspective, in terms of percentage of their possessions, 15.4% of their possessions end up in a turnover. So that's roughly 1 in 8 of their possessions, they turn the ball over. So really, really, really not good. Something that they're going to have to improve if they want to, actually contend with whoever they might face in the playoffs. And then a couple of questions for the Grizzlies. They're a hard team to gauge in terms of their ceiling. So how high really is it? I mean, they've looked up and down recently and over the course of the season. They're clearly capable of being a really solid team. They've had stretches where they're one of the top net rating teams, but they've also had stretches where they've been really poor. And there's a lot that can go wrong for them. So just the ceiling and the floor of this team is something that's hugely in question. And a big part of that is, can Ja stay healthy? He's been in and out of the lineup all year. I don't really need to say too much there. He just needs to be healthy if this team wants to make a run. Moving on to everyone's favorite Western Conference playing team, the Golden State Warriors. And they've got some serious strengths. Their star power is the number one thing, right? Steph Curry is clearly still a top 10 player in the league. Since the trade deadline, he's averaging 27.6 points per game, 5.8 assists. It's just crazy numbers. He's such a beast, the greatest shooter in NBA history. Nothing needs to be said. And then Jimmy Butler has also been really good for this team. And then, playoff Jimmy definitely has some aura to it. So we'll see how well they're going to play going forward. Hint, it's going to be very well, probably. Their team defense is also really, really good. They've got Draymond and Jimmy, who are both, defensive masterminds, two of the best defenders in the league. And then Moses Moody has really impressed me as a point of attack defender. Just to put a number to it, they have a 111.9 defensive rating on the year, which is good for seventh best in the league. So pretty good. Shooting is obviously another strength for them. It's the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry's on the team, but then also Moses Moody's a good shooter. Podziemski is a good shooter. Buddy Hield is a pure shooter. These guys are all good. And like I said before, Steph Curry. In terms of weaknesses, there are two main things that stick out to me. The number one thing is maybe a smaller concern because it hasn't really affected them so far, but they do really, really lack size and then the depth at the 5 position. The team is just kind of small in general. Draymond plays the center for most of his minutes. Trace Jackson Davis, who was their main backup big early in the season, isn't getting any minutes recently. Quentin Post has been good as a rookie, but I mean, it's still a question in the postseason. His defense has been questionable. And then Kevon Looney, who's their other backup 5, probably isn't going to be able to play too many minutes just with how he is physically at this point. Something that concerns me specifically, it doesn't really show up in the stats statistically, is the rebounds. Like I said, they're statistically actually a pretty good rebounding team. They're in the top 10 in terms of defensive rebounds percentage and offensive rebound percentage. But just in certain games that they've played against big athletic teams with really good rebounding centers, is they can get beaten up on the boards. I saw it against the Houston Rockets, who are obviously a phenomenal rebounding team. I've seen it against the Memphis Grizzlies, which is going to be important in the play-in here. So it's just something to consider. And then just one question I have for the Warriors is, will the rotation hold up? They've been really good. The bench production has been really good recently, but some of their shot makers off the bench, guys like Buddy Hield and Podziemski, have historically been really inconsistent. So it's hard to say if that will stay going forward. All right, now finally getting into some of these matchups, the part everyone is probably here for. Sacramento versus Dallas is the first one I'm going to talk about, 9 versus 10 game. Here's the win cons for Sacramento. I think they're going to have to attack Dallas's bigs in isolation. Zach LaVine and DeMar are both good self-creators. I'm sure they're going to be very happy to attack Lively or Gafford if they get that opportunity in space, and you just need to capitalize. And then another thing is put your shooters in the corner. You don't have many shooters, but the guys you do have, stick them in the corner, because Dallas, like I said before, in their section, helps off the corners a lot. And they'll do it even more against your team because your team is statistically really poor spacing. And for Dallas, kind of just defensively play your game. The type of scheme that you're running works really well against teams that shoot poorly, and Sacramento is a really poor shooting team. Pick and roll, and then the verticality off of that pick and roll is going to be big. Forcing Sabonis and Valanciunas to step up and defend your pick and roll, will get you all kinds of opportunities if they overplay it for the lob, for the kick out, everything that you want to do, you can get started with the pick and roll. You're also going to want to deny Sabonis from getting the ball. Front him in the post, prevent him from getting the catch there when he's operating, in the high post at the nail free throw line. Just front him, prevent him from getting the ball. You're going to want to box him out hard to prevent him from getting offensive rebounds. And you're going to really want to deny his catch on the perimeter so he can't, initiate a lot of the DHO actions that Sacramento is so fond of. And then the final thing for Dallas is jump LaVine in the pick and roll and when he's coming off screens, because you have the help at the rim if you need it. Your whole scheme is designed around having help at the rim. And so if you can deny Zach LaVine opportunities to drive, he hasn't really shown that he can, play make otherwise. And if he's your primary, or if he's Sacramento's primary ball handler and his main source of playmaking is taken away from him, that's really going to disrupt their offense. Next up for Golden State versus Memphis, 7-8 matchup. This should be a great game. For Golden State, you're going to want to generate some turnovers, right? Memphis is a high turnover team, and Golden State's got great defensive personnel. Get up into the body, poke at the ball, just as much pressure as you can, getting in the passing lanes, things like that. Memphis will turn the ball over if you put pressure on them. You're also going to want to load up on the bigs. If Jaren Jackson's getting into his post game, you're going to want to send 2. Get the ball out of his hands because he's going to eat you alive on those mismatches. And then you're going to want to crash the glass, box out, get your rebounds. Don't let a bigger team beat you by being bigger. And then, Steph getting 30 points will help. For Memphis, you're going to want to hunt those mismatches. Get Jaren Jackson that switch, let him work on the mismatch. If they send 2, move the ball, find the open man. That'll be a great way to initiate Memphis's, swing kind of offense. Second thing is send the house at Curry. One of the best ways to beat the Warriors is to throw 2 or 3 bodies at Steph Curry every time he touches the ball. Make literally anyone else on the team beat you, and that's a pretty good step. And then, if Ja gets 30, that would also help. All right, for a potential deciding matchup between Memphis and Sacramento, for Memphis, you're going to want to move the ball, space the floor. I think playing Jaren at the 5 and focusing on getting up threes, maybe fewer minutes for Edey, unfortunately. I'm a big Edey fan, but you're going to force Sacramento's bigs to either sag off and give those 3-point looks, or they're going to have to play up on the outside, which will open up things for you inside. But then you're also just going to win the math battle against a bad shooting team like Sacramento. Just send a lot of help. Get Jaren on Sabonis or DeMar, let him help off, because those guys are not going to really be shooting. Just let him roam, do his thing, disrespect shooters that aren't named Keon Ellis or Zach LaVine. When you're against a team that shoots poorly, you have the luxury of being able to let them shoot. For Sacramento, really, Keon Ellis and LaVine are just going to have to drop in 5 threes each. They're going to have to somehow generate offense against a really, really solid, Memphis defense with Jaren roaming. And then DeMar is going to also have to be efficient on his touches because, like I said, you're going to struggle to score in the paint versus the interior defense from Memphis, all the help they're going to send. And so if you can get your best shooters the ball, punish that help, and then DeMar just be efficient, do your thing, that's really the only way that your offense is going to even be close to keeping up with Memphis. And then a hypothetical second round matchup between Memphis and Dallas. For Memphis, the driving kick game is going to be huge. Ja is a great driving kick player, and Dallas is really, really going to send a ton of help on Ja's drives. And so if you can, kick the ball out and then swing, get it moving on the perimeter, get them in the blender, get into your Memphis style offense, that'll be a source of probably a majority of the offense is some kind of driving kick action. And then another thing is Edey is going to have to hold up defensively versus the double big. If he can just stand at the rim, deny the lob threat, deny the verticality from Dallas, that'll be huge for you defensively. And then you're going to want Jaren to win the matchup with AD. That's going to be a huge matchup for both sides of it. So if Jaren can score on AD and then defend him well, that'll be a big advantage. And then going into Dallas's win cons, the reverse is true. If AD can lock up Jaren and score on him in isolation, that will be a big advantage. That's going to be a matchup that I'm really watching heavily in that potential game. And then trying to play Zachy off the floor is going to be important as well. If you can, get him into the pick and roll, do your best to attack him, make him move his feet, and if you can, make him into enough of a liability defensively that he can't stay on the floor, that will open up the double big for you so you can use that lob threat, use that offensive rebounding, get into your game with your size with just Jaren out there as the only big man. Second to last matchup here, Golden State versus Sacramento. I'm going to get through these last two really fast because I don't think they'd be that close. Golden State, at the end of the day, is just a much better team than Sacramento. And all you have to do is just don't play really bad. To say anything more specific, sending some bodies on Sabonis, boxing him out. Don't let him obliterate you on the boards because he's one of those guys that I said before is very capable of doing that. And for Sacramento, Sabonis has got to be a beast on the boards, generate those second chance opportunities, do everything you can to, boost your offense to keep up with Golden State, and pray for 50 from Zach LaVine or DeMar. There's not much Sacramento can do in that matchup. Last matchup here, Golden State versus Dallas. For Golden State, threes are going to be big. You've got the three-point shooting talent, find those guys in the corner when the help comes off of them, like Dallas loves to do. Draymond screen for Steph to get open, or, get ISOs for Curry to shoot off of Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford on a mismatch. It's free food for him. Just get up threes, make threes, punish their help with threes, that kind of thing. You're also going to want to double Anthony Davis every time he touches the ball. Don't let him post up, force him to pass the ball away, get it out of his hands, because his size and interior scoring, if you don't double him, will burn you. I want to see high pressure on Najee Marshall and Spencer Dinwiddie when they're initiating the offense. You've got on-ball guys like Moses Moody, like Jimmy, who can put that kind of pressure on these two, take advantage of them not being, the world's best ball handlers. You'll be able to force turnovers and really slow down and disrupt their offense. For Dallas to win this game, it's all about abusing your size. First thing is the pick and roll and then lobs. Because you have that massive size advantage, if you can get the ball to the roll man or, find the other big in the dunker spot for a lob, something like that, that'll be how you can generate a lot of offense versus a much smaller Golden State team. And then another thing that I'm looking at is PJ Washington. Because if Dallas is playing the double big lineup and PJ's also out there, PJ is probably going to be matched up on the three from Golden State, which is, depending on the lineup, either Moses or Jimmy Butler. And, Jimmy's a good both of those guys are good defenders, but PJ Washington is what, 6'10"? very strong. He's going to have that crazy mismatch whenever he's on the floor. And I don't think Golden State's defense is going to load up on him in the same way that they might load up on, Anthony Davis. So if he can, get downhill into the paint, put his man in the basket, have a big game, 25, whatever, then that'll be big for Dallas in that matchup. Finally, just briefly, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to predict for the play-in here. The easiest thing to say is that Golden State is really by far the best team here. They should probably pretty easily win as a 7 seed, and if not, definitely the 8 seed. In the 9-10 game, I have Dallas winning that simply because I think their team is just better. They're a better shooting team. They have a size advantage. Sacramento's just not that good, unfortunately. No disrespect to them. And then in a potential matchup in the decider game, Memphis versus Dallas. I think Memphis has more talent on the team. Their playmaking, like with Ja Morant's driving kick game, matches really well into the style of defense that Dallas wants to play, and they can match some of that size as well with the Jaren Edey double big lineup. So I think that in terms of that matchup, Memphis is my heavy favorite to be the 8 seed. So Golden State 7 seed, Memphis the 8 seed, and that's all I've got for you guys today. I'll be continuing to make videos, cover the playoffs as they're happening. I'm probably going to do some preview videos before they start on Saturday. So stay tuned for those. Like, subscribe, whatever the YouTube thing is to say. Leave a comment telling me your favorite take that I gave in this video. I don't know. All right, see you guys.